Sean here with BaseMint Comics. It is not the weekend. That is normally when I do Cornerbox Classics, and I had every intention of doing a Cornerbox Classics yesterday, but we were out in the morning, and our area got hit by what felt like a monsoon for about 2 hours, just a constant downpour, and I came home and I had a bad feeling, and I was like, sure enough, there is going to be water in the basement because our gutters were like overflowing. So I'll cut to it here for a second. So as you can see, things are out of, the normal area that they are kept in, obviously. Water was coming in along the bottom of that wall. And so I had to move everything out that was along that wall, and I'm trying to basically just get everything slightly more organized. It was very quick to get everything out of there, and the bookcases before they were ruined. Thankfully, there were only a few things, and this was, lesson learned, So that was me yesterday trying to not sound as stressed as I actually was about this, as I had to quickly tear apart that, if you've seen that section in the old room tour, but I actually redid it in all my Fantastic Four and Incredible Hulk and Thor stuff, and Spider-Man is in that room. And so I had to quickly move it all out to over here behind me, but I got it into long boxes yesterday and kind of stacked up because I've obviously, as you can hear, have some industrial-sized fans drying everything out. Gonna do some work on the gutters to create more downspouts and push them further away from the house, so that this, the problem is it's an older house, and the downspouts are like on the side, so there was just too much water to travel to the gutters, and so it started spilling over the sides and just fucking water, man. It's in the top 10 of nightmares. It's in the top 3 of nightmares for down here. No water, no fire. I don't know what the third one is. Personally, not a fan of sinkholes. That one scares the shit out of me, but I'm not too worried about a sinkhole opening up and swallowing me whole. Anyways, so I apologize for the delay in Cornerbox Classics. First off, because like I said, had every intention of knocking it out yesterday. Was looking forward to it, and then was like, holy shit, all hands on deck. And I spent the entire day with the shop vac sucking water out of the carpet. But if you watched the old room tour, one of the things that I talked about was how much I hated the carpet in this house. We've hated it since we bought it, but we were doing all sorts of other renovations to the rest of the house where we were like, we'll change this one day. And now's that day, because we've decided to get some water-resistant vinyl flooring, and we have a few folks coming out. Nobody cares, but got a few folks coming out to do some sizing and quotes. So that might push the upcoming fixed up room tour. Will have new floors and no water. Nothing was damaged. That was the good thing, was I was able to. I'm pretty good at ripping this apart quickly. I have moved it enough over my lifetime to be good at that. My neighbor was nice. He used to work at my old comic book shop, and so he was available to run over and help. And the only thing that got like the bottom of a couple bookshelves have a little, like, they're not gonna look kick-ass, but they're dried out. They're flipped up so that the bottoms are drying over there's around me there is stuff everywhere. And the only thing that was quote unquote ruined is I had, that when they put out that like ginormous, like the things like this, like the ginormous Fantastic Four, Behold Galactus, that thing. When they put out the giant Galactus book, I had that, but there's no bookshelf that can hold that. And so I had that, like, tucked in, like, a tiny little gap in there. And so the bottom of that got wet. And I was like, oh, we'll just pitch it. And my wife was like, hell no. And she has spent, I cannot tell you how many countless hours. She was like up until 2 in the, I think she felt really bad about the fact that this happened. I obviously was bummed out about it, but very thankful that, like, comic books are raised up, and like I said, it wasn't like it was just the carpet was squishy along the baseboards, and everything needed to be moved, but nothing was really ruined. But she has been with a hair blow dryer doing every single page of that, even though I was like, I have countless copies of the comics in that. It was just a neat thing because it was huge. And she was like, whatever, man, I feel bad about it. And so she wanted to do that. So anyways, that is what is going on here. So this section of the room is not chaos because I wanted to be able to still put out some videos, but if a company comes along and is like, hey, if we're doing the floors, I'm gonna have to move so much shit. I'm gonna have to move all this stuff, so that might put some delays in this. But anyways, I was like, let's knock out Corner Box Classics anyways. And usually there's lights there, so I might be more, but I can't get to them because there's boxes upon boxes of comic books and action figures kind of blocking that way. So it is what it is. This is like low-key BaseMint Comics. So, yeah, and again, apologize for the fans, but I am not going to shut them off because I want everything to get dry as soon as possible, and I am looking forward to the Flooring people coming out tomorrow, and I'm hoping there's a great quote, and I gotta knock this out, then Hank and I are going to pedal up to our comic book shop and see about borrowing some old long boxes because, surprise, surprise, I don't have a ton of long boxes because I put everything in bookcases. So that isn't a problem until this happens. So, alright, anyways. So, August 10th, 1982. I'm about to turn 1 in 2 months, so I wouldn't have been pedaling up to the comic book shop at this time. Probably wouldn't even be crawling at this point. But if I were, the first book that I would have picked up off the spinner rack is Avengers 225, The Fall of Avalon, released August 10th, 1982. Written by Stephen Grant, pencils by Gregory LaRocque, inks by Chick Stone, letters by Janice Chang, colors by Christy Shield, and a cover by Ed Hannigan and John Beatty. And it's a pretty good cover. I liked the cover more than I liked the issue. This is not my favorite time period of the Avengers. I'll just say that. And, because of everything that's going on, I'm probably going to breeze through a couple of these quicker than I normally would. Just because I got a lot of stuff that I got to do. But I still wanted to talk about these because the further away that I get from reading them, the less I remember. And I'm sure there's somebody in the comments that'll be like, you got that all wrong. But, typical, usual, weird, I don't want to say weird training exercise, but like the hang on one sec. There, that's better. Now there's more lights behind me. I had to crawl over some things to get to it, but this should look a little better. I realized when I held up the comic book, I'm like, you can't see anything. There you go. Look at that. Look at what a difference that makes. So Thor, I think, there's some defenses going on at the mansion as he shows up that kind of gets to him, and then it's the typical, usual at this point. Avengers hanging out in the kitchen meeting room or whatever, and Dr. Druid shows up, and he transports a group of the Avengers back to the 17th century, I think. And it's everybody but Iron Man in this. And so there they come across their old teammate, the Black Knight. And you get a quick kind of recap of the Black Knight, which is always helpful because that is slightly confusing. Like I love that character, but my sweet spot for that character is like 90s bomber jacket, lightsaber Black Knight, not necessarily OG Black Knight. So a character named Emigran is basically the one who transported the Avengers to Avalon and sort of explains through Black Knight's explanation of what happened to Black Knight and why he's in this sort of realm, explains that like this character like brought everyone to this area, which like it's between dimensions. Earth lies on one side and the dark realm known as the other lies on the other. And here like they drove off these bad guys named the Fomor to the the dark monsters from the other side, and he's basically saying like my power's fading, I'm not going to be able to hold them back, and I need the Avengers' help with this. And so then we cut to the baddies of our group as they make their play against this. There's a bunch of like god type of names: Indek, Tethra, Dolb, things that I don't know if I'm nailing those exactly correctly. And they kind of send those characters back to Avalon, where they attack the Black Knight and the Avengers. And so, as they do in comic books, a battle carries on, and the Avengers are getting... It's the classic trope of, like, the Avengers are getting beaten up, but then they quickly realize, like, hey, if we switch up who we're fighting, then we can defeat them. And so they do this, and then the bad guys call forth this crazy huge dude named the Baylor. And that guy just zaps Thor and She-Hulk like right out of the fight. And we don't know where they went to, because then it cuts back to Avengers Mansion, where one of the gods gets away and attacks Dr. Druid and Iron Man from the Avengers Mansion. And that is where this issue that I did not enjoy very much, I don't know, I just wasn't into it. Loved the cover, but I don't know, I just didn't get it. Like, this felt more like a modern week for me, where I was like, it's half and half. Yeah, but Avengers was definitely not my top choice for best book of the week, that's for sure. What came in dead last, though, was Captain America Annual Number 6, The Shadows of the Past, released August 10th, 1982, written by J.M. DeMatteis, pencils by Ron Wilson, inks by Vince Colletta, letters by Diana Albers, colors by Don Warfield, and a cover by Ron Wilson and John Beatty. My pre-Brownstone Captain America knowledge is limited to very specific storylines. Like, I'm not, when I was younger, for sure, I wasn't I was not a regular Cap reader. The book, I was an X-Men guy, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man mostly, and the Avengers always, I did dabble here and there, but Cap was not a book that I was regularly getting. I'm happy with what I've been reading now, and I have some older Cap stuff, Serpent Crown Affair, stuff like that, things that had X-Men characters in it mostly, but my background with like the 1950s Cap, stuff like that, most of that comes from like Brubaker's run and flashbacks of those characters, which probably aren't, if I'm guessing, the best representation of those characters. Anyways, all of that is to say, I did not enjoy this at all. I don't even really feel like talking about it. I mean, this was like interdimensional travel, and I think one of the characters who was Captain America at one time, or possibly the Spirit of 1776, this character. And I got to admit, after yesterday's idiocracy level of, and I mean years of listen, I like the Brownstone era of Cap. I have a pretty good chunk of the Invaders, But this just, dude, this was a rough read for me. This is truthfully the first time that I've struggled this hard in a week of Cornerbox Classics. It gets better after this issue, but this Cap annual was like not my favorite. It kicks back and forth kind of, which was confusing to me at first because I'm not familiar with all the previous like incarnations of post Steve going into the water and then dusting off other characters. Like, we haven't been introduced to US Agent in continuity yet, and so I'm like, I really don't know that much about the 50s Captain America. So it turns into kind of this weird wonky time travel tale where like they're getting pulled into a different dimension because I think his name is Mace, was one of the characters who was an older Captain America, and he gets basically pulled into the time stream or another dimension by this character named the Buddha, and he is like, and some of the elder gods, which just, and that was another thing where I just sort of like switched out when this happened, because I was like, man, Ron Wilson on pencil should be great, but the Vince Colletta doing the doing kind of the finished art didn't, it wasn't as good as I'm used to when it comes to Ron Wilson. J.M. DeMatteis, I really like his writing, but this one was just weird, man. I've got no beef with like the Elder Gods or any of that stuff. Any type of like the Thor mythological stuff I can dig if in the right mindset. But trying to like cram Captain America solo into this stuff felt weird. And so it was a lot of like, this dude basically like this Mace dude as the Patriot like wants to finish off a bad guy that he was facing, which I think you can see the details in of What If number 4. I have not read that issue yet. I've been following along with the Geeky Old Hogs What If Wednesdays as he's been going through those, and I don't know if this is like another dimension where this happened and this dude's this is probably following. I probably would have really liked this if I had actually fucking read What If number, see, there you go. If I'd read What If number 4 before reading it, I should probably do that. I'm going to read What If number 4, then I'm going to read this again. But I'm pretty sure What If number 4, if I remember my What If Wednesdays from the Hog, I don't think What If number 4 was a good one. That got a shrug and an eye roll, if I remember correctly. Anyways, probably would have liked this more because I think the crux of this issue is them going to that dimension and like this dude getting vengeance for what happened in What If number 4. And having not read What If number 4, that meant that I cared nothing about any of this that was going on, and it sort of confused me, and I was just like, I am not digging this. And basically this ends with the Mace character realizing that like he's really going to mess up Captain America in the time stream if he gets his vengeance for what happened. So he winds up like sacrificing himself, allowing Rogers to defeat the bad guy, and all's well that ends well in this thing. But yeah, I suppose, yeah, a little bit of homework goes a long way. Clearly, I should have paid attention to that editor's box, and I should have been like, gotta go downstairs, gotta grab What If number 4, gotta read that before I carry on with this issue. That is a fail on my part. However, I do want to say this, because I know there's weirdos that think that house ads count as first appearance. So I guess in Captain America Annual number 6, you get your possible first appearance of the new Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, because she has not popped up yet, but she is clearly about to join forces with the Avengers. So that's exciting. A lot more exciting than how I felt about that issue. A book that I really enjoyed this week, Incredible Hulk 277. What Friends Are For, released August 10th, 1982, written by Bill Mantlo, pencils by Sal Buscema, inks by Joe Sinnott, letters by James Novak, colors by Bob Sharon, and a fun cover by Sal Buscema and Al Milgrom. UFOs have captured Hulk in this last issue, and so that's where we open up. And I'm telling you, If I do not get a box set of UFOs soon from the Hasbro people, I'm going to do nothing, because I don't have any pull at Hasbro. But it'd be cool if they got us one. So the UFOs do the thing that they used to be able to do, and this made me laugh. They kind of like cut in to like all across America at the peak of primetime television. Images flutter and fade as Hill Street Blues is preempted by a live broadcast, both unscheduled and unexpected. And this made me laugh because in recent years, I no longer have cable. I just don't. We cut the cord a long time ago because it's crazy expensive and stupid, and the only thing that we're really watching on TV is like, you know, DuckTales and Spidey and His Amazing Friends and Bluey. So why have cable, right? But when things would get preempted, I always laughed at the reaction on like if shows got interrupted to let you know that there was going to be a huge downpour in your neighborhood and you should probably prepare for it. People get all bent out of shape, you know, and it's like, man, somebody needs to know that, you know, it could really affect somebody. They need to know. So yeah, I can only imagine the people in 1982 getting bent out of shape when the UFOs pop up and they're like, we're about to murder Bruce Banner, and they're like, but I want to watch Hill Street Blues. I don't care about Bruce Banner. Maybe people were better in 1982. I think that might be it. And so this is nice because it gives you, I kind of always love it when they do this, where it's like, hey, we're going to show you a bunch of other characters reacting to this news. So you get the Fantastic Four, you know, Ben's trying to watch his shows and Reed's berating him for like watching something on the wrong computer, you know. And he's like, I didn't do anything, Reed. Or, you know, I didn't do anything, Stretcho. This just popped up. And then we cut to Avengers Mansion, and, you know, same thing over there, where they're like, we can't, the signal's being blocked, we can't figure out where this is. And then you see the Defenders, and this was nice because it kind of explained where, like, as much as this would affect the Fantastic Four and the Avengers, it really affects the Defenders because, like, they've been teammates with them the longest. Then we get a X-Men appearance I didn't know about. We get one panel of Professor X standing in front of the old 1960s Cerebro, and then Atlantis, and you get Daredevil, you get Spider-Man reacting to this, and Alpha Flight, you even get the Soviet super soldiers, and then it cuts to Thunderbolt Ross and Doc Samson kind of going through it, and you see what I believe to be the leader reacting to it as well. And I dig those, like, Dark Phoenix saga, when the Phoenix, like, unleashes her full force after the Hellfire Club fight. Like, you get kind of this cut away to the rest of the heroes trying to, like, rescue people. And I love that stuff. It's super fun. So then we cut back to the Gamma base, where Barit and Rick Jones and a very pissy Betty Ross are at. And she's bumming me out because she's still pissed off about, she's like upset that Bruce stuck with being the Hulk persona, even though he's smart while doing it. She's pissed off about it. Her and Rick keep on getting, you know, Rick's like, I can't believe you're being this selfish, you know, like, you can help people. And she's like, the only reason you want him to be the Hulk is because you'd be a nobody without Hulk. And I'm like, that was a low blow, Betty. A low blow. And so, you know, the Barit put together her little, like, art things to attack the UFOs. I don't know, man. It's comics. And I'm very new to Hulk. Like, I'm only 4 or 5 issues in. Like, I jumped in on the Banner is, like, this isn't technically Smart Hulk, because I know that like Professor Hulk comes later, but this is where he can actually control the Hulk. And that all seems great. So you get a quick recap of what happened, where the UFOs got, you know, in charge. They basically, you get another, like, UFOs kind of like, this is what went wrong with their introduction and how they got powers and how it affected them. that's when Barit and the rest of our Gamma Base gang shows up, and they all start fighting each other. They get Bruce free, and I just think the look of the UFOs is cool. I imagine Vector is an absolute pain in the ass to draw, which, you know, I get it. That would that would be a bum out, but it's still a cool look. I like the color scheme, I like the character, and so you're getting like Hulk now is back in control and absolutely going to town against the UFOs. Creates quite the big mashup, and then full on just you know, whoops UFO ass. And so this for me, like, it was just like, I've always been intrigued by those characters. Don't have a ton of backstory on the UFOs for me personally in the books that I have read in the past, but you know, dig the look of them, and as I get to know them and I know that they're primarily Hulk foes, and I again will stress this, I'd always wanted to read the Peter David run, and years back I'd completed it in Epic Collection, and then I wound up like getting rid of the Epic Collections because I was able to get a complete run of Hulk. So from here on out in Cornerbox Classics, there's no skips in Hulk, but it will be you experiencing me experience the Hulk the first time. There's some books in this that I have read hundreds of times, and then there are some books that have been pulled into this that I have never read. And one of those is Power Man and Iron Fist number 87, Heat Wave, August 10th, 1982, written by Denny O'Neil, pencils by Dennis Cowan, inks by Carl Potts, letters by Janice Chang, colors by Christy Shield, and a cover by Dennis Cowan. And Power Man and Iron Fist is another thing that I have never read, but I picked up a lot of it recently, and so that's a book that I'm I'm tackling at both ends there. I'm starting from 50 and working my way through, but I also wanted to pull it into Cornerbox Classics since I have it in my collection, and that's what this whole thing is. So this was I really enjoyed this, and part of it is I often stress this because it's true for me, and this is not me trying to convince anybody to buy books, read books. This is just me sort of like it's I either do this, or while we're having dinner tonight, I tell my wife all about this Power Man and Iron Fist issue, and she's sweet enough to blow dry a Galactus hardcover, but I don't think she really wants to hear about rando Iron Fist, Power Man and Iron Fist tales. Maybe, who knows. Anyways, that crazy ass weather cooled everything off here to normal temperatures, but for a couple days there, last Wednesday in particular, we were nearing 100, and so this issue being called Heat Wave, I read it during our little quick heat wave, and that adds to it. Like, I always like when those two, you know, like I love sort of reading Thor fights during a thunderstorm, because it's like you get real life sound effects, not just stuff in your head. Oh, you know what? Before I get into Moon Knight or Power Man and Iron Fist, I'm looking at Moon Knight right now because it's on a. Does everybody do the voices in their head? And if you do, have they stayed the same throughout the years? Like, do you find a voice for a character? Do you pull a voice from a TV show or a movie? I know that some of the X-Men characters, I hear the animated series voice in my head, but I was curious, like, and I'll probably ask this again on Wednesday for anybody that doesn't watch Cornerbox Classics, but it's something I was like, the other day I was thinking about as I was reading the comic and I was like doing the voices. I was like, does everybody do this? I would assume everyone does that, but I don't know. So do you do voices either in your head or, and sometimes I get so caught up while I'm reading a really good comic that I will legit start reading it out loud with voices. And if you do, are they voices that you have created in your head, or are they voices that do you like hear I know lots of people in my age group tend to hear the animated series Peter Parker. So I'm just I've always been curious about that. Anyways, Moon Knight is chasing down some dude, some bad guy. And like initially, to me, because I don't know if this is a character from Moon Knight. I'm not reading Moon Knight. But I'm like, I couldn't tell. So in the initial pages, it just legitimately seems like Moon Knight is like chasing down this dude on the street who was just having a conversation with his wife. Quickly, you realize this guy sucks, especially when he tries to hit Moon Knight with a crowbar and then pulls a gun on him as they're on the roof and near this water tower. And so they both wind up fighting each other on the edge of the water tower, and they fall into the dry water tower. And then we cut to Danny and Iron Fist at Heroes for Hire Inc., and they get met by Moon Knight's gal and his limo driver. I should know all of these characters' names, but I have not been reading Moon Knight regularly. I read the first couple of issues, and I was like, it just wasn't doing anything for me. And, you know, I got a lot of stuff. Maybe one day I'll try again. But at the time, I was like, this isn't doing anything for me, and there are other things that I would like more. And so I traded out my Moon Knight run for some Amazing Spider-Man that I wanted in single issues. So we then cut back to, obviously, she like hires Danny and Luke to find Moon Knight. And then we cut to Moon Knight, who is hurt, and the guy that he was chasing is dead. And it is during a heat wave, and they are in an unfilled metal water tower on the top of a building in New York. So Luke and Danny hit the streets, start, canvassing the place, trying to figure out where Moon Knight is. And then we kind of keep on getting cut to Moon Knight in the water tower with really no way to get out, and slowly becoming, dehydrated, and, he's not doing great up there. And so they eventually track down this sort of, they're kind of on the tip that Moon Knight was. The reason why he was chasing down that other guy was because of some shipments that were coming in, bad stuff, etc., etc. And they're trying to figure it out. Don't really get anywhere with this. And then Moon Knight realizes he finally pries open part of the bottom, hoping that he can crawl out through the bottom, because the dude in the beginning hit him with the crowbar, so that was in there. But it turns out that it's just money, and he's dead, and money can't get them out of this predicament, I'm sure is part of the lesson of this. So then a ton of rain shows up. How fitting for this Corner Box Classics. Ton of rain shows up, and that's when the bad fellow with the crowbar from the beginning, his name's Al Jordan, that's who it is, his wife shows up, and she hires Danny and Iron Fist to, see, I did it again, I said Luke and Power Man, and there's Danny and Iron Fist. She hires Iron Fist and Power Man to go looking for her husband. And then it kind of cuts to the water company guys that are like, hey, we can start filling up this water tower and pumping water through. So now man, I'm off my game. Now Moon Knight is in now it's filling up with water. So now dehydrated, beat up from getting hit with a crowbar and a gun pointed at his face, is now unable to lift his head above water, so he's going to start drowning. But thankfully, the wife of the bad guy, Al Jordan, knew the whereabouts of kind of where they were fighting, where Moon Knight had chased him up the building. And so they were able to find him, and Luke's like, hey, all's well that ends well, and Danny is like, well, not for everyone, and because obviously Al Jordan is dead, and so his wife is obviously upset. And yeah, he was a scumbag, but, his wife still loved him, so there's that. Speaking of a book that I've read a ton, that I love, Uncanny X-Men number 163, Rescue Mission, released August 10th, 1982, written by Chris Claremont, pencils by Dave Cockrum, inks by Bob Wyacek, letters by Tom Orzechowski. No! I'm so used to saying that letters done by Tom Orzechowski for Uncanny X-Men books. This month it was Joseph Rosen. Colors by Bob Sharon, and a cover by Dave Cockrum. And when I was younger, I did not like Dave Cockrum's pencils. They just seemed old-fashioned to me. And it was a lesson that made me realize that it's probably not good. It was a lesson I learned when I was younger to not dismiss the elder statesmen of comic book art. That we wouldn't have, in your naive youth, you're like, oh, the guys that I grew up with are the best, and it's like, they're not. Dave Cockrum is a fucking master and should be respected. His stuff is fantastic. His character design is fantastic. The entire Shi'ar galaxy exists out of his imagination. The man was an absolute powerhouse, and I will spend the rest of my days apologizing for my youthful folly of not enjoying Dave Cockrum's art as much as I can. And I can say this, as much as I loved the Byrne stuff, I was thrilled that Cockrum came back and I got a second chance to read his pencils. I have an art book over there, one of the IDW artist editions, that's Dave Cockrum, and pouring over those X-Men pages, man, I could stare at him all day. His character design, flawless. Love the dude. His wife's great too. So we're in the midst of the Brood mission. All of that is going down. I always sort of love this thing about Claremont where I'm like, you can kind of see the storylines in the X-Men and you're like, what popular movie was out? Alien was clearly on the mind. So this opens up with Carol Danvers getting blasted by the Brood. And one of the things that I really like, I was wondering this because obviously it's a Claremont book. So there's quite a bit of text as the Brood scientists are running experiments on Carol. And it's in English. And I'm like, do they actually speak in English or am I just reading it in English? Is there a Brood language? When Wolverine sneaks up on him, is he hearing Brood speak? I would imagine that he is, but I'm just able to universal translate it like Doctor Who, where I'm reading it in English. And another thing that I noticed, when I was young, I thought the markings on the Brood's heads were all the same, but they're not. And it almost seems like a classification. Anyways, just something I found interesting. So they're realizing quickly as they're doing these transformations that normally when they do these types of things, in the way that they're doing it, the characters kind of check out, but Carol is aware. And they're struggling with her physiology because it's not human and it's not mutant. They're clearly not accounting for the Kree DNA in here. And this is one of the parts that made me laugh because basically, this is where you realize the hierarchy in Brood, because there's one of the scientists that's doing the experiments looks at another Brood and is like, basically, hey, go get some snacks. It's so clearly that guy's not as high up on the Brood food chain as that particular one. And the fellow who goes to get snacks, unfortunately, when he exits the lab, runs into a very pissed off Wolverine who, makes pretty quick work of them. And then he realizes that Carol is there. Kind of goes a little bit into their backstory, which is something that I've always loved. I know that recently in one of the issues, I talked about how much I dig Captain Marvel. It was, I think, in last Wednesday's new comic book thing. And the character spent a lot of time in the X-Men universe, and so it's a character in the greater Marvel universe that I got to know pretty well. Like her history. Obviously, I enjoy the history with Rogue, even though it's a bum out. But I like that her relationship with Logan goes back further. Her relationship with him predates him being an X-Men character, and it kind of goes into that as he's rescuing her from this Brood thing, and he realizes that something is wrong, and when he's looking in her eyes, he sees that she has basically a galaxy in them, and he knows something's wrong, and he sort of does the very Logan thing of kind of narrating inside of his head, and explains that she obviously knows that something is going on as well, but they got a job to do, and they're both ex-military, and they're just going to get it done and not worry about what's going on at the moment. Then we cut to Polaris reuniting with Alex and Corsair back at the mansion. They kind of catch up and explain that, the X-Men are off-world, dealing with the Brood. Then we get Cyclops, and I love the panel structure of these. Just kind of the outline of the panel, I think, is fantastic. Obviously showing that Cyclops is being experimented on by the Brood at this point, or having some type of nightmare. I mean, this goes on for pages as it's being hinted at that he is being affected by the Brood. He even then stumbles upon Aurora, and sees, you can see kind of the outline of the Brood character there. And so Cyclops obviously knows that something is going on, and this is when they bump into Logan and Carol. They pull Colossus along, but Colossus isn't aware that they're in why can't I think of the whale type of ship that I'm drawing a blank at the name for some reason. Nagari is in my head, but that's the demon. So they're in the whale ship, and Colossus is like, he's even talking as they're walking through, and he's like, "What are you guys talking about? This is like a corridor. We're in the Shi'ar corridor. This is," and they're not. They're in the belly of a Brood ship that has been taken over. So then the Brood attack, and thankfully at this point Colossus snaps out of it and is kind of like, "Oh, holy shit, we're getting attacked by big bug monsters." And a battle ensues. Cyclops is just trying to get them out of there and not go after the Queen, and Logan is hell-bent on it. Like, he is refusing to allow he just wants to go kill the Queen, and Cyclops can't quite wrap his head around why he doesn't want to, hey, let's get this figured out some other way. But Logan obviously wants revenge because he's aware with what's happening to him, and his sense is that everybody else could be dead. So he just wants revenge. So then Kitty, Nightcrawler, and Storm kind of get away, and Kitty gets chased by an alien. I mean, this is some Alien versus Ripley going on here as she sucks him out of an airlock. And the entire time, Nightcrawler teleported her to the point that she needed to be able to get them inside, but he's just been chilling outside waiting for her to take out this Brood. They eventually do defeat these Brood, and they're aboard a ship as everyone's trying to explain what's going on, and they all get caught up. Last panel is them in the sights of another, I'm assuming, Brood ship in this one. And so next issue, Binary Star. So I love the Brood saga, and we are, I think, 1 or 2 issues away from Dave Cockrum leaving us, which is sad. But fear not, true believers, Paul Smith is going to take over on pencils, and that is a good time. A first for Corner Box Classic. Marvel and the dreaded competition present the Uncanny X-Men and the new Teen Titans #1, Apocalypse Now, August 10th, 1982, written by Chris Claremont, pencils by Walt Simonson, inks by Terry Austin, letters by Tom Orzechowski, colors by Glennis Wine, and a cover by Walt Simonson and Terry Austin. I do not have this in one of those clear backing boards because it's mostly DC characters on the back. Yuck. Anyways. Obviously I have this issue because I am a X-Men fan, a Chris Claremont fan, Walt Simonson fan, Terry Austin fan, Tom Orzechowski fan. It's an enjoyable issue. I don't know enough about the new Teen Titans, and you sort of, when reading this, clearly there's some type of, I've talked about this in the recent Superman, Spider-Man crossovers, where one of the things that I like about that is they kind of just like drop you in the universe as though these characters know each other. And there I liked it, but here I didn't. And that's, I understand it doesn't make any sense, but it's just sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And obviously there's a big bad, and they're trying to like rule the cosmos, and they're going to do so by siphoning Phoenix energy and getting control of the Phoenix. And you'll learn over time with me that the Phoenix is something that I just wish they would leave alone. It was a great story, and I don't like them going back to that well constantly. It bums me out. There has not been a single thing done with the Phoenix since the original Phoenix Saga and Dark Phoenix Saga that has ever come anywhere near close to touching it. So just stop. So, you get a little bit of like, hey, these are who the X-Men are, done by Claremont, and it's done well, and it's drawn by Walt Simonson, and so that's fantastic, and this makes for a really good read. And clearly, Kitty Pryde has a nightmare of what I can assume is Darkseid. Is it Darkseid or Darkseid? I honestly don't know. I have no connection. And then I really love this. Scott is visited by Jean, and I love this panel that kind of shows her going after him and kind of fading through him. Then it cuts to the Teen Titan. I chuckled that their base is a ginormous glass T. I was like, cool. It turns out one of these characters, what's her name? Starfire, maybe? They keep on calling her Coriander, which I can, like, the seed? Like, I imagine that is. Anyways, she clearly does it. She knows what the Phoenix is, which I was like, okay, I guess. And she wants to destroy it. And then you get sort of an introduction, and this is the problem. Like, Claremont is writing X-Men and has been writing X-Men for years now, and so his introduction to anyone on the DC side that maybe isn't familiar with the X-Men is well detailed, and his explanation of who the Teen Titans were in this felt like 30% of that. So you can sort of see a bit of a bias, which I'm sure is just him. I don't mean bias in like a negative way. I just mean like he's way more well-versed at telling you who the X-Men are than he is who the new Teen Titans are. Don't have a problem with any of the characters, but it did not give me, a person who is completely unfamiliar with these characters, much ground to stand on. Art's great. Story's still fun. Like, I enjoyed the story, but it's one of those things where I'm sure someone who is reading both of these titles probably enjoys the hell out of this issue. Where to me, I was just like, all right, cool. And so then they keep on referring to this character as Terminator. And I thought that was Deathstroke. But I don't know enough to know, because I'm a Marvel guy. So I was a little bit thrown off about that. The X-Men travel to John and Aline Gray's house, Jean's parents, visit them because they have had a vision of Jean visiting them, much like Cyclops did. And this bummed me out, because I was like, man, like, being a parent, like, constantly being tormented by the ghost of your child would just absolutely suck. And so then it cuts back to the Teen Titans as they're sort of getting together, and the Coriander character kind of explains what's going on here with the Phoenix. And then that kind of kicks in, like, this character named Ravik, the Ravager, is sent to take the X-Men. But at the same time, the Teen Titans show up at the mansion while the X-Men are at John and Elaine Gray's house. And so these dread demons or something that are working for Darkseid, wind up just taking the Teen Titans. And so then it cuts to the Butte where Scott and Jean consummated their relationship during the Dark Phoenix saga, and they are expounding or pulling out the Phoenix energy from this. The X-Men show up because they've been realized what they're doing, and so they have tracked them down to this. They wind up defeating them. They wind up destroying the machine, but that Terminator character winds up defeating all of the X-Men, which I was like, that ain't happening, but whatever. Then we get this double page spread of the Wall, which is, I guess, like another, we're dealing with so many nexus of realities here. And so that's when the Darkseid characters realize basically that Ravik the Ravager is an idiot and he picked the wrong characters. But don't you worry, because the Terminator has brought the X-Men, and Darkseid, or Darkseid, I don't know, manages to manifest through this power the Dark Phoenix, and basically tries to use that power to then destroy the universe. So our two teams do what they do. We're about 3/4 of the way through here, so of course they're going to team up at this point. They put their knowledge to good use, and they then go after the bad guys. And again, this is all fun. It's super heroics. It's Walt Simonson pencils, but I have a thing where I'm not always keen on them using the Phoenix. So eventually, like, I thought this was pretty cool. Like, Cyclops winds up inhabiting the Phoenix power, and we get that cool Phoenix Comics costume, which is way better than the AVX Cyclops Phoenix power. And eventually the day is saved, the Phoenix power is destroyed, Darkseid is lost, and that is the end of that. It was fun. I'm glad I own it. I'm glad that I read it. I'm sure if I read the new Teen Titans, I would love it even more. But that's where it is. I would have picked it up because of the X-Men, and that's what it is. Last up, Vision and Scarlet Witch #1, Trick or Treat, August 10th, 1982, written by Bill Mantlo, pencils by Rick Leonardi, inks by Ian Aiken and Brian Garvey, letters by Joseph Rosen, and colors by Bob Sharon, with a cover by Rick Leonardi and Jack Abel. This is a super fun, great issue. I've read the series before, and then probably 20 years ago. And I remember loving the first issue. I don't know how I feel about the rest of the series, but I love the first issue. And I am a big fan. I thought the WandaVision Disney Plus show was fantastic, and 100% tones of this particular comic were taken for the Halloween episode. Absolutely. Kids are pretty ecstatic to learn that there are 2 Avengers living in the neighborhood. They go back to their house, which they've purchased with their money from being Avengers. Jarvis winds up being at the house because he's going to help them sort of get settled in. And then we get a full-on... They get interrupted because Cyclops... Captain America has sent, like... it's a spell book written in druidic ruins with Jarvis for Wanda to take a look at. And so the book basically opens up. We get kind of a brief history of the 2 characters. Again, it's Rick Leonardi pencils. This is a great handling of Wanda and Vision. This is a great story, like a great story to read at night. Halloween, just it's a fun time. So some trick-or-treaters show up because it's the same kids that are excited that there's an Avengers, 2 Avengers in the neighborhood. And so they go to trick-or-treat at the house, but the Druidic Ruin book is opened and a character escapes from it while the Vision and Scarlet Witch are busy doing other things. And it turns these kids into the monsters that they are actually dressed as for Halloween. And so these monsters then attack Vision and Scarlet Witch. There's a ghost and a dude with a flaming pumpkin head, and a little like goblin type of monster. It's just fun. And then you quickly get introduced to the main bad character, which I am not seeing his name pop up, and I cannot remember off the top of my head. But he's a pretty great looking druidic baddie. Knight of the Living Druid, so maybe he just goes by it, the Living Druid. I don't know. So then he quickly explains, he like kind of shunts Scarlet Witch through time, explaining all of the things that they have done throughout this. And all of them battle. Vision realizes he can't really attack these monsters because they're kids underneath. He recognizes them from earlier when they were out trick-or-treating. Jarvis tries to lend a hand. Again, this is all beautifully rendered by Rick Leonardi. He is a fantastic penciler. And it's just a fun issue where they're all fighting against this, you know, magician with his scythe, and they eventually defeat him, as they are wont to do. And then the issue ends with Robert Frank showing up, who at this time is believed to be Wanda and Pietro's father. And so this issue is a ton of fun. It's a great issue. Like I said, my thing is I can't tell if I'm mixing. I loved the first Vision and Scarlet Witch miniseries, which was, I think, 6 issues. But then they do a follow-up that's 12 issues, and I don't think I think what it is that I didn't like the 12-issue one as much. But that's what it is. So those are the books that I would have pedaled up to the shop and gotten on August 10th, 1982. Like I said, sorry for the delay, but fixing water troubles in this BaseMint HQ is top priority. And, you know, fingers crossed over the next couple of days that one of the 3 companies I have coming out gives us a we can live with quote 4 new floors in here, and we'll be back in business. So I will be back on Wednesday. We're gonna hit up the comic shop for new comics. I think I've only read a couple of last week's books so far because I was focused on getting through the Cornerbacks Classic stuff. But what I read, I really enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to diving into the rest of those books and getting to that. So I am going to get out of here before this is already crazy. I was like, this is going to be a quick one, and it wasn't. It never is. It never is. All right. So thanks for this. You know, what books out of this did you pick up, and do you read with voices in your head, or do you read out loud, and what are they? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on Wednesday for a bike ride up to our comic shop. Thanks for taking this ride with us.